Good morning. I'd like to thank the organizing committee for giving me the chance to present today. So the title of my presentation is A Comparative Study of Mood and Modality Systems in Tunisian Press Conferences and TV Awareness Advertisements Related to COVID-19. For the outline of my presentation, I'm going to introduce first of all the topic, and then I'll describe the genre and dialect under study together with the mood and modality systems. Afterwards, I'll present the research question and then the corpus and method of analysis. And finally, I'm going to display the findings in discussion, followed by the conclusion. Having said this, I'll move to the introduction. So, considered as a window onto the system as Halliday 2005 claims, texts are informative of the structural choices in a linguistic system, and thus corpus linguistics is useful for studying how these choices vary as a function of context. Media discourse is chosen as the context of the present research, given the importance of media in covering news related to COVID-19, as well as raising people's awareness about the pandemic. In Corpus words 2016, media shapes the way the public perceives reality and social events. Although media discourse has been studied for mood and modality, the literature lacks a comparative genre-based analysis, especially in Tunisian Arabic, which has not received much attention except for few studies on phrase-based machine translation and morphology. Seen as the context of this research, genre can be described as how interactants purposefully form and organize messages within their cultures following a sequence of stages, as Martin 1984 claims. Of particular interest in this study are media genres, which offer solutions to real-world problems so as to soothe people's concerns, especially during the outbreak of COVID-19. In this context, the Tunisian government opts for two media channels, namely press conferences and TV awareness advertisements, to address the public and to overcome the drastic situation. While a press conference is an event in which important news of public interest are delivered in the presence of journalists in order to elaborate information, as Ready 2019 maintains, a TV awareness advertisement aims at arousing the audience's sympathy, as Kian 2009 claims, and it has an important role in shaping the audience's perceptions of social life, as Aurora 2019 maintains. Press conferences and TV awareness advertisements are conveyed in Tunisian Arabic, a dialect used by Tunisians in their daily lives. Tunisian Arabic results from the interactions between Berber, Classical Arabic, and many other languages, such as French and Italian, as is maintained by Ms. Moody et al. 2014. The following figure actually clarifies the context investigated in this study. So I have the first genre, press conferences, and I have the second genre, TV awareness advertisements, and both of them are conveyed in the Tunisian Arabic dialect. So TV awareness advertisements and press conferences will be studied for mood and modality. And actually, how social relations are enacted through language across these two genres can be analyzed from an SFL perspective. Within the interpersonal metafunction, the text is the outproduct of interactive exchanges whereby speakers and addressees enact and negotiate social relations, as Mathieson et al. 2010 claim. This dialogic construal of meaning is best expressed at closer level through the mood system and can be lexicogrammatically realized through the modality system. For mood, it refers to the mood types of indicative, that is to say declarative and interrogative, as well as the imperative, and shows how interactants draw on different linguistic resources to enact speech functions when exchanging information, as Halliday and Mathieson 2014 maintain. The following figure shows the mood system as is developed by Halliday and Mathieson 2014. But, building on examples from the corpus, the mood system is further refined to fit the specificities of the Tunisian Arabic dialect, as you can see in the following figure. Now let's move to modality. So modality involves speakers' evaluation of the validity of the proposals, including an exchange of goods and services and propositions expressing an exchange of information, as Matthiasson et al. 2010 claim. Modality is of two types. First of all, we have modalization when the speaker assesses the proposition in terms of probability and usuality. And second, we have modulation when the speaker evaluates the proposal in terms of obligation and inclination, as Halliday and Matthiasson 2014 maintain. The figure here shows the modality system developed by Halliday and Matthiasson 2014. This model is actually used in the annotation of the corpus. So far, I've described the genres and dialect under study, as well as the mood and modality systems, in order to answer the question, how do the two media genres, that is to say press conferences and TV awareness advertisements, determine the choices of mood and modality and affect the way speakers engage with the audience? To answer this question, a corpus of 45 videos covering news related to COVID-19 and being delivered in Tunisian Arabic to the public from 2019 to 2021 is chosen from the Facebook page of the Ministry of Health. The corpus includes 15 press conferences and 30 TV awareness advertisements. Since the two subcorpora are not equalized, frequencies are normalized per 1,000 words. The two subcorpora were manually converted from the spoken mode to the written mode because the online software does not give an accurate transcription since I'm not working on the standard variety. Then also the two subcorpora were manually annotated, and afterwards the SPSS is used in order to calculate the Mann-Whitney U-test to look for significance. These are examples from the corpus. I've summarized them in the following table, and here I can read some examples of nominal clauses. So nominal group plus nominal group clauses, we have التلقيح متاعنا مجاني. An example of verbal clauses is as follows: اخترنا باش يكون انطلاق الحملة مجاني. We can also take an example of the interrogative type باش تتميز السلالات هذه. Let's take another example of the imperative. امشي لأقرب بلاصة لدارك. And last, for the exclamative type, I found only one instance in the corpus, and here this instance is found in TV awareness advertisements. The example is as follows: محلاها لمتنا كي وليداتي يجيو بحذايا. This table illustrates modality, and for modality type I can take an example of usuality. ديما نحلو شبابك. Another example of obligation is as follows: كلنا مع بعضنا يلزمنا نحاربوا المرض هذايا. For the orientation, let's take another example of explicit orientation. So here I have يكون فيه إمكانية إنه يكون بالكورونا. Concerning the value, we can take the example of a median value. يحتمل إنه يكون عنده المرض هذايا. And last, I can read an example of negative polarity. ما نحبش للرقم هذايا يولي هاجس. Having said this, I'll move to the findings and discussion. At the level of mood, the table shows the relative frequencies across genres. In the corpus as a whole, nominal clauses exceed verbal ones, revealing that Tunisian Arabic opts for more nominalized structures, unlike Standard Arabic, in which most clauses are verbal. This finding is consistent with Kai's claim 1990 that the majority of colloquial Arabic dialects are nominalized. Unlike Standard Arabic, elemental interrogatives can be realized through raised intonation in Tunisian Arabic. Compared with Standard Arabic, in which the particle in elemental interrogatives takes an initial position, the interrogative particle in Tunisian Arabic can occupy initial, mid, and final positions. Across genres, TV awareness advertisements have the highest frequency of the imperative, which incites the addressees to undertake an action and change their behavior. The imperative is marked with a preference first for the gessive and second for the suggestive, and this reveals a shift of persona since speakers move from holding the addressee responsible for performing the action and thus displaying a high authority to co-sharing this responsibility and thus opting for more cooperation. However, press conferences have the most frequent number of declaratives with higher occurrences of nominal clauses. This is explained by the fact that nominal clauses, and in particular totally nominalized clauses, direct readers' attention to the theme as a nominal group, and thus they construe the situation as an event or a state rather than an action. And this actually matches the informative nature of this genre, where a recount of important facts and a report of personal evaluation are given. For the nominal group, verbal group nominal clauses, they take a verbal group conceptualizing an action as a reme, with the theme being a given information, reiterating previous information. And this is a redundancy characteristic of spoken discourse. And thus here we can notice that the nominal group verbal group clauses have a cohesive function while focusing readers' attention on the verbal group. Now let's move to modality. So the table here shows the relative frequencies of modality per 1,000 words. When it comes to modulation types, the study has shown that modulation is higher in TV awareness advertisements, showing that speakers in TV awareness advertisements prefer proposals to incite the audience to take action. This communicative function is typical of this genre, where speakers attempt at changing people's conduct in society, as Aurora 2019 claims. However, modalization is more present in press conferences, revealing that speakers opt more for propositions with the semantic function of information exchange, given that this genre is informative, as Ready 2019 claims. For the modulation type in the corpus as a whole, obligation is higher than inclination, which is justified by the fact that obligation is used to issue commands, on the basis of which receivers are supposed to perform an action, and thus obligation allows speakers to act on the audience, which is actually a major feature of the media genres designed to influence the audience with respect to political and social issues, as Silverblatt 2007 claims. The cross-generic analysis shows that TV awareness advertisements have a higher frequency of obligation with a more explicit orientation, and in this way proposals become more foregrounded, and hence explicitness can be seen as a persuasive strategy in TV awareness advertisements. Obligation tends to occur through an objective tone whereby the issuer identity is unrevealed. Speakers' preference for an invisible role reflects their attempts to build a monoglossic discourse focusing on the receivers. Clauses of obligation are also marked by the preference for a high value, implying a higher level of pressure which complies with the ultimate goal of this genre, meant to influence receivers' perceptions of the words in order to achieve producers' intents, as Cayenne 2009 claims. For modalization in the corpus as a whole, probability is higher than usuality, and this difference is explained by the fact that probability expressing speakers' judgments serves the communicative functions of both media genres, sensitizing and informing the audience about the country's situation, as Brunston 2006 claims. As for usuality, it has a low frequency and it tends to have a high value. Therefore, it indicates a very recurrent situation, allowing speakers to report government's measures with certitude and thus to present news as facts so as to reassure the audience. It additionally has an emphatic tone in TV awareness advertisements where speakers foreground the actions required from the audience. Across genres, probability is more present in press conferences than TV awareness advertisements. Probability is characterized especially by an objective orientation in press conferences, and here it serves as a hedging device, enabling speakers to give their assumptions about the possible future situation during the pandemic, building on facts and statistics in press conferences, given that this genre notifies the public about the latest news in the country, as Ready 2019 claims. Now, let's move to how modality is realized in the corpus. So the figure shows that Tunisian Arabic clauses can be modulated in 5 ways: through verb nexus, modulated verbs, nominal groups, adjectival groups, and modal adjuncts. The figure shows the preference for verb nexus and modulated verbs in press conferences when it comes to probability, inclination, and obligation. Probability, inclination, and obligation are also marked by the verb nexus realization in TV awareness advertisements. These findings may lead to the conclusion that Tunisian Arabic tends to be modulated in the verbal group. The figure also shows that nominal groups are more present in TV awareness advertisements, revealing that obligation and probability are more incongruent in TV awareness advertisements than press conferences. Given that the proportion of nominalization is proportional to the formal degree of text types, as Wei and Yu 2019 claim, the higher number of nominalized metaphors in TV awareness advertisements can be related to the fact that the speeches are prepared beforehand, while those in press conferences involve face-to-face interactions with journalists. After describing modulation and modalization, I'll move to polarity, and as the table shows, positive polarity dominates the corpus, revealing a preference for an affirmative and assertive context and implying a positive and reassuring tone. Across genres, negative polarity is higher in TV awareness advertisements, and here negations reveal how speakers focalize directives for emphatic purposes for the sake of prevention and protection in TV awareness advertisements, considering that the primary objective of this genre is directing the audience to perform an action, as Kian 2009 claims. When it comes to negative polarity, and in particular the direct versus transferred distinction, direct negatives outnumber transferred ones, showing a preference for the negative marker to occur in the projected clause. Given that direct negatives highlight speakers' commitment and intensify the force of the claims, as Tran and Lori 2014 claim, their higher frequency in TV awareness advertisements shows that this genre is more authoritative. As for the realizations of negative polarity, the figure shows that there are 9 devices to express negative polarity in Tunisian Arabic. The most frequent negative marker is ma, coupled with the addition of the suffix ish in verbs, revealing that the negative polarity is likely to fall in the verbal group and thus it has a low probability of occurrence in totally nominalized clauses. To conclude, in this study, I have analyzed mood and modality in Tunisian Arabic across TV awareness advertisements and press conferences. Concerning the mood system, the study has shown that TV awareness advertisements select more imperative as they have a guiding function, while press conferences show preferences for the indicative given that this genre is informative. As for modality, the study has revealed that obligation is higher in TV awareness advertisements, yet probability is so in press conferences, indicating that TV awareness advertisements have a more authoritative voice. And these findings lead to the conclusion that press conferences tend to draw more on the logical appeal, while TV awareness advertisements enhance more the pathetic and logical appeals. The study has 3 implications. First, it has highlighted the functional principle of language, since the lexicogrammatical choices of mood and modality are determined by contextual factors, and namely genre. Second, it has outlined the communicative functions of mood and modality across 2 media genres, which may have implications for teaching media discourse and Arabic for specific purposes. Third, it has identified how mood and modality are lexicogrammatically realized in Tunisian Arabic, thus giving insight into how these systems can be refined in another language, namely Tunisian Arabic. The analysis of other genres could be useful to better explore the lexicogrammatical realizations of mood and modality in Tunisian Arabic. This dialect actually needs to be further investigated for other linguistic features from an SFL perspective. These are my references. This brings me to the end of my presentation, so I'd like to thank you for your interest and attention today. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer your questions and open up a discussion.